What's up, everyone? Today I'm reviewing Goosebumps Most Wanted, How I Met Your Monster. This is part of the werewolf review-a-thon that I'm doing with Goosebumps completionist and Michael Goosebumps fan. So this is the third book in the Most Wanted series, I think. Yep, the third book. And this isn't exactly a werewolf story, but it kind of is. I mean, look at the cover. He looks like a werewolf, and he says, "I love wolves" on his t-shirt. So we're adding this to our list of our books we're reviewing, even though they're not exactly called werewolves in the book. So yeah, anyway, let's talk about this one. I don't have a whole lot to say about this book, so this review will probably be a little bit shorter, but I'll just talk about how I feel about it anyway. So in this one, our main character, Noah, he's kind of a cowardly character. We're introduced to that very early on. The book opens up with him having these nightmares, and he starts thinking he's seeing these monsters everywhere, and he's just obsessed with these nightmares he's having. And there's a couple of annoying dream sequences. There's really not too many, surprisingly. Sometimes R.L. Stine does go overboard with those annoying dream sequences. They're in a lot of Goosebumps books. There's not a ton in here, thankfully, but it does open up with a couple. And yeah, but anyway, so we learn that he's kind of a cowardly character, and he's having these nightmares and everything. And when he goes to school, there's a new kid at school, and his name is Monroe Morton. I think I rolled my eyes a little bit when I read that. Like, come on, Stine, really? Monroe Morton? Anyway, so we're introduced to this new kid at school, and Monroe and Noah, they kind of become friends and start hanging out and stuff. And some weird things start to happen where Noah's dreams kind of continue, and he starts seeing these monsters pop up, and every time he does, Monroe is nowhere to be found. Like, he's just gone. And then he always comes back right after something disastrous kind of happens that goes along with this monster that he saw or that he thought he saw. So he starts to suspect naturally that his friend Morton is a monster, and then his friend Morton is also very like flamboyant with how he behaves in regards to like overeating food and saying things like that have to do with monsters. And one of the lines he says in here is, "I have a monster appetite." It's very cheesy and just done in a very obvious way, where the book is leading us to suspect that he's a monster, and that's what the main character Noah is kind of suspecting throughout this entire book. And that's pretty much what the story revolves around for the most part, is him just trying to figure out this mystery, trying to get proof. He's torn between his friendship for Morton, like he wants to be friends with him, he seems like a cool guy. Noah is kind of a shy character and doesn't really have many friends, so he wants to be friends with Morton, but at the same time he knows something's weird about him. So he's kind of torn between his friendship for him and wanting to expose the truth. So that is one thing I did like about this story, I will say, is I thought that was kind of an interesting element there. Him being not sure what he wanted to do, Noah. Again, he's kind of a shy and timid character in the book. He does face a bully in here. Bullies are a very common element of Goosebumps books, and he does face a bully in here that's mean to him and steals his lunch money and all that classic stuff. And so Noah does find like a good friend in Morton, but at the same time, he's just kind of scared of him a little bit, on a little bit of a different level than he's scared of the bully, and feels like he needs to figure out the truth of whether or not Morton is the monster that he's seeing. So that's pretty much the book. I won't get into the plot any more than that. I don't want to spoil anything, but that's the basis of what this one's about. As far as what I liked about it, that's probably the main thing, to be honest, is kind of the character dynamic between Noah and Morton. Even though their characters are a little bit shallow. So Goosebumps characters, I know I've talked about this before, and I probably don't need to say it again, but generally Goosebumps characters are very shallow. They're cardboard cutouts. In here, they still are cardboard cutouts. Especially Noah, he's really not a very, besides his cowardly traits and just him always wondering things, like there's really not much to him at all. Like, I don't even know if he's a cardboard cutout. He's just the cardboard. They're not very in-depth characters at all. But he still managed to kind of give some unique dynamics between him and Morton, even though they're not exactly the most fleshed out characters. So I found that kind of interesting. I'm struggling to come up with positives to say about this book. Like I said, I don't really have a ton to say about this book, so I'm just gonna kind of move on to how I feel about it overall. So actually, one thing I will mention that's kind of a negative aspect. Actually, I already talked about it. It's just the characters was really the biggest thing for me. They just really felt one-dimensional, and I didn't like how obvious the book was pointing towards Morton as the primary suspect of this monster that Noah keeps seeing. So those are the two things that I didn't like about it. The rest of the book, I don't have anything negative or positive to really say. So how I feel about this book is very indifferent. To me, this book is the equivalent of a shrug of the shoulders. It just feels very meh in the truest definition of that word. So this book, I feel like would appeal to Goosebumps fans who maybe haven't been exposed to a lot of the older Goosebumps books, or younger kids who didn't grow up with a lot of the older ones. So some of the newer Goosebumps books, quite a few of them actually, aren't necessarily bad, but they just rehash old ideas and do nothing more, and don't do it as well as a lot of the older ones. And that's what this book is, at least to me. And in my opinion, this one is just a complete retreading of old ideas. Now, pretty much every Goosebumps book does share the same plot structure to a degree and has elements in it that can be traced to earlier Goosebumps stories. But this one really doesn't do anything new whatsoever. This to me just feels like a complete rehash of something we've already done before. I felt like I've read this book before. And the ending to this one. So again, like I said, we're kind of led to believe that the certain character is the monster in here. Of course, there's a twist at the end. And the ending of this book and the twists that go along with it, they did not surprise me at all. One of them I saw coming, and the other final twist we get, that one I didn't see coming as much, but it did not surprise me at all. Like, it's kind of predictable. If you've read any amount of Goosebumps books growing up, even just a few of them, this book will probably be predictable to you. And yeah, the ending is just, it's the most cliche ending you can possibly do for a book like this. There's literally nothing new in here, nothing we haven't seen before, and it's just done in such a simple and basic way. And like I said, R.L. Stine tries to go for that kind of surprise and shock factor in here, but it doesn't work because of how obviously he's trying to steer you in the other direction with certain characters and suspects regarding who is the monster in here. But it doesn't work. Again, if you're younger and you haven't read a ton of Goosebumps books, or even if you're older and getting into Goosebumps for the first time and you read this, you might get some more enjoyment out of it. But for me, I just felt like I didn't care about it. It was just kind of boring. So again, there wasn't a lot I disliked about this book. I didn't exactly hate it or anything, but it didn't really do anything for me either. It just, I don't care about it. And that's pretty much my rating for this one. Like I said, I don't really have a lot else to say. This book was just very meh. That's the best way I can think to describe it. So I can see how I would enjoy this book more if I haven't read all the past Goosebumps books, but there's really nothing new about this one. So on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, I'd probably give this one 2. Maybe a 2.5 out of 5 stars if I'm feeling generous. But I think I'm going to stick with a 2 out of 5 stars on this one. Again, it's not a terrible book, but it's really not that bad. I don't hate anything about it. It's just, I don't really like it that much either. It's something we've seen before from Goosebumps. So it's just an old mashup of ideas just put into a new story or a new title with new names of characters. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. So How I Met My Monster, guys, not terrible. I know I'm getting a little bit repetitive, so we're just gonna end the review. You guys get the picture. So that's it for How I Met My Monster, guys. Keep on the lookout for more werewolf reviews coming soon. I think we're getting close to being done with this. I only have a couple more books I'm going to be reviewing before we get to our ranking videos. I'm not sure how many books Michael Goosebumps Fan and Goosebumps Completionist have left. I think they're getting close to the end too. But yeah, keep on the lookout for more werewolf video reviews in the future. And thanks for watching, guys.